Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, What If Issei Fall in Love with Elsha, Movie 4. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. And also check previous parts of this What If. Let's start this video. Fixing a damaged heart. As soon as he said those words, Lucy turned around and walked back towards the living room with Issei following her. As he entered the room, he could tell that this was something that you could only imagine in your wildest dreams. Everywhere he looked, he found that it was full of all sorts of furniture, a large LCD TV with a fireplace under it. There were also a lot of pictures and statues that made him wonder if all of the high-class devil's homes were filled with these types of things. There were also many games to his surprise, like a pool table, pinball machine, and a lot of other game platforms that he saw in the human world but couldn't afford. Lucy sneaked a quick look at Issei's figure when he started looking around, once more unknowingly blushing softly at how hot he looked in his casual clothing. While he didn't look like anything special, he looked perfect to her. She couldn't explain it, but something was attracting her to him. It was like a magnet pulled her towards him, and it grew stronger with every look she threw at him. As Lucy made her way toward one of the tables in the room, Issei saw that she was looking at a photo. Getting closer to her, he saw that there were 3 kids in it. 2 of the kids had slick silver hair, while one was a boy, the other one was a girl that looked like a younger Grafia, while the last one was a girl that also had a silver hair but with a purple tone to it that made it obvious to him that that was Lucy in her younger days. She looked even cuter as a little girl. Issei thought as he looked at the younger Lucy in the picture. "Sekiruyute, leave now before I hurt you. I know why you are here and I don't care about it. I want to be alone." Lucy suddenly told Issei in a cold voice that made him flinch a little, but he gritted his teeth as he saw that Lucy had a few tears running down her face as she turned around to face him. "And why would you do that? I'm not here to fight you. If I wanted to fight, I would have entered Balance Breaker the moment that Grafia left." Issei told her softly, trying to calm her down, but to his disappointment that had a very different result. "I will not let my sister do as she pleases. She is more than welcome here, but I don't like being used as some tool to help anyone. I can guess what she has said to you, and I don't like it. So get out of here." Lucy started in a slow and cold voice before she yelled, releasing a large amount of aura, and her hand started to electrocute with power, making Issei take a few steps away. Lucy's eyes started glowing in dark blue color, as if all the fury she held inside of her was about to unleash at the young Sekiruyute in front of her. "Lucy?" he softly said as his eyes were filled with sadness. He saw the fury in her eyes, but he also saw that underneath all of that rage was deep sadness that showed him she was that much hurt. Issei growled slightly, seeing the sadness and loneliness, and stood his ground. "I know how you feel," Issei said, watching Lucy clench her fists. "What do you know about being used? You never had to fight someone that is your flesh and blood or watch them getting killed in front of your own eyes. You don't know how it was for me when people first started to try and use me to get close to my sister and her husband. To be manipulated, to be ignored later on when they finish with you. To feel lonely all the time. So I'm telling you now, get out, Sekiruyute, or I will kill you." Lucy yelled again as she shot a powerful lighting at Issei, who barely dodged it in time. "Lucy, I know how it is being used as a tool and watching someone close to me die right in front of me, and you are right, I won't lie to you. At first, it was because she told me to help you, but seeing you now, that has changed. I will help you all on my own." Issei shouted at her in a determined voice as he summoned his gear and started boosting his power. "Sorry Grafia, Surzik, but if this is the only way to bring her back, then so be it," Issei thought as he yelled. "Do it, Drag." Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Drag roared as Issei's armor appeared in a bright flash or red light as Issei entered into a battle stance with his dragon aura swirling all around him. "Lucy, if this is what will take it to break through you, then so be it. Now come on. I never gave up on anything, and I'm sure as hell won't start now," Issei said as both Lucy and he charged at each other at full speed. Meanwhile, at the nearby cliff, Grafia stood with Surzik looking at the castle that towered the surrounding area. As they watched the Lucifuge estate, Surzik turned to his wife. He saw her looking at the estate with interest, as if waiting for something to happen. "Grafia, what are we waiting for?" he asked her, wanting to know why they didn't go home yet. Turning her head a little, she smiled. "You will see in a moment. If what I think is going to happen, then we may soon have a new house head." Surzik was staring at her with a dumb look. He still couldn't understand what his wife meant with that. That was until he felt 2 strong auras shooting through the roof. Quickly turning around toward the castle, he saw and heard massive explosions going on as the attacks were coming from every which way. Grafia, seeing this, just giggled as she knew what was happening, which forced Surzik to tear his gaze from the castle towards her. What is happening down there, Grafia? Surzik asked, a little scared for the young Red Dragon Emperor as he could tell that both Lucy and he started to clash. After giggling for a bit more, Grafia told him. That my dear is what Lucy needed, whoever approached her was weaker than her and only tried to use her. After what needed to be done was done they would leave her never to return. If Issei can somehow manage to be on par with her or overcome her, then that would show her for the first time in her life that he is there to help her, not use her. You know that people don't think clearly when in rage. Well, that is Lucy in a nutshell. She is filled with rage, and if Issei could weather the storm that is Lucy, she would slowly open up to him. Seeing the logic, Surzik just nodded his head, turning his attention to the battle that was going on in the castle, with the hope that Issei would be able to do impossible again. Good luck, Issei Hayoto Lucifuge. Lucy may be rough on the edges, but she is soft inside. Treat her well, Issei, I know you can. With that thought, Grafia tapped Surzik on the shoulder and motioned him that it was time to go. With a nod, Surzik made a magic circle and left with Grafia, leaving a young emperor to fight a battle that will change his life forever. As the battle of will and power continued, Issei felt that he was slowly breaking through the barrier that Lucy put around her heart. He knew that sometimes the best way to know the person is to fight them, and if that was what it took to help Lucy, he would do it. As he was in thought, he fell into her trap. As Lucy charged for another attack, Issei prepared to block it or dodge it, but he didn't expect for Lucy to miss on purpose to create a smokescreen that she used to get around him. And send a powerful kick that sent Issei flying into the wall on the opposite side. Lifting up, he couldn't feel, but had a little smile as he was starting to enjoy this battle. Lucy was a very skillful opponent and a powerful one at that. She knew how to use and exploit his weakness, and he found that thrilling to see how much she could back him up against the wall. Is this the best you can do, Sekiryuite? If it is, then you better get out of here before it's too late. Lucy said as she looked at the young boy that was clad in red armor. She would admit that while she had an advantage in both experience and power, the boy in front of her was a quick learner and was, with a help from the gear, quickly neutralizing her advantage in power. Though as she continued to pummel him down, his will was something she was fascinated by. Normal beings would run away 10 times by now, but this boy in front of her was not giving up. He would stand up and without fear charge directly at her. Though not to say that he also managed to land a few powerful hits on her. No, why would I do that, Lucy? I never had a fight this good, and my spirit and will are something that is not going to let me back down now when this is getting good. I'll admit you are the strongest opponent that I fought, way stronger than that fried chicken, but that doesn't mean that I will kick the bucket now. So let's continue. He answered her honestly, making her eyes widen as she heard him. Very well, don't say I didn't warn you, Sekiryu. Lucy started, only for her to be interrupted by Issei. No, none of those stupid titles. I'm fighting you as Issei Hayoto, not the Red Dragon Emperor. So just call me Issei or Ice, Lucy. He told her as his helmet disappeared, and he smiled softly at her, which made her blush a little bit. This guy is interesting, that's for sure, but if he can't at least be equal with me in power, he is not worthy. Though what he said is true, I'm enjoying fighting him. It's been a long time since I had to go almost full power. Lucy thought as a small smile started to show on her face that made Issei's eyes widen even more, seeing that she was also enjoying this. Now Lucy, I think it's time for me to go full power, don't you think? It would be bad of me to lag behind when you are also going almost full. Issei told her with a smile that made her look at him in shock. What? You are not at full power, and how do you know how much I'm using? You never saw me until today? She asked in pure shock. Simple, I can tell from the way your hits and aura are getting stronger by the second. Now shall we be, my lady? Issei answered with a smirk and a little hand signal to show her to come at him. Why you? Lucy growled as she flared her full power and charged at Issei at her fastest speed that he was barely able to keep up. Now this is more like it. He mumbled to himself as he also powered to the as Drake's voice was heard yelling boost repeatedly. As Lucy closed in on him, she sent a powerful right hook at his face, but to her horror, Issei blurred out of sight the moment her fist was to connect with his face. As she looked around her, she continued to hear Drake roaring boost, but she couldn't see him or sense him. It was like he disappeared completely. Putting her guard up, she decided to flush him out by a barrage of magic attacks everywhere that would hopefully show his position for her to attack him, but just as she was about to attack, she heard Drake roar. Explosion. She felt something with a hell of a lot of power was just released. The power alone started to make her start to shake for the first time in almost 50 years. Lucy felt an almost foreign feeling that she thought that she had forgotten about, but she felt it before. It was fear of this massive power that was coming from somewhere and was about to hit her full force. Feeling something coming from behind her, she quickly turned around and put her arms up to block the attack, but she was met with nothing, and as she realized a moment later, it was a feint attack from Issei to make her think that he was coming from behind when in truth he was coming for the side. Hitting her on the side with a powerful kick, she was sent flying to the same wall that he crashed into not moments ago. Lifting herself up slowly, she was met with a sight that made her pale a little bit. Issei was standing in front of her with a small orb of red energy that she could tell was very powerful. Seeing that she was pinned by Issei with her back to the wall, giving her no room to maneuver to evade the attack, she decreased her power, knowing that she had finally lost to someone that was her equal in power. Someone that would not use her and would treat her like a person and not a tool. Well, looks like you beat me, Issei. I can tell that your attack is powerful and will leave me in no position to continue. Congratulations. She said in a defeated tone, while panting exhaustively with her head low as she sat down with her back against the wall that she landed against. That made Issei cringe a little bit as he released his armor while panting a little bit. "Hey, Lucy." He called her, making her look up to see him having a smile on his face as he got closer to her, making her blush. "Why yes." She answered with her voice stuttering a little bit. "That was fun, we could do it later again if you are up, but now I think it's time we clean up and have a little talk to get to know each other. Don't you think? I have all the time in this world for you." Issei told her as he put a hand on her shoulder, making her blush a little bit more this time at his touch. Not trusting her voice, Lucy just nodded and she started to show him where the bathroom was and where he would be staying. After cleaning up and refreshing a bit, both Lucy and Issei met in the living room that was a battleground not 15 minutes ago. Lucy gestured for him to take a seat while she went and brought something for them to eat and drink, while Issei started reflecting on Lucy's behavior while she was off. "Greg, Elsha, do you know why Lucy was like that?" he asked his resident dragon and blonde beauty. That during the battle stayed quiet and didn't interfere much with his gratitude. He wanted to show both of his residents and himself that he could stand against someone who was stronger and more experienced without their help. There is a lot that could have made her do what she did. "I think it's best to ask the source directly, Ice, but now that you weathered the storm, things will be easier, trust me on that one." Elsha answered honestly, knowing that it could be million and one thing that made her be like that. "Honestly, partner, it's like Elsha said. There could be many things, so it's better to ask her directly." Drake said he was just as lost as Issei was. "Well, it's like both of you said, it's best to hear it from the source," Issei said just as Lucy returned bringing a tray of food and some juice. She gently placed the tray on the table that was between them with a small smile on her face as she sat down across from him. "Eat up. I know that you are hungry and that leaves you exhausted just like me," Lucy told him in a soft voice as a little pink was seen on her beautiful face. Thank you, Lucy, I'm famished from it, though it was fun like I said. You are pretty strong and clever." Issei thanked her in a tender voice with his face also adoring a little pink on his cheeks. As they started to eat, they slowly made small conversation about what he knew about the devil and supernatural. Before Lucy's face turned from a ghostly smile to serious. "Issei, tell me, why did you come here to me honestly? I know it has to be something big," Lucy told him in a voice that left no room for argument. Nodding, Issei answered her honestly. "Like I told you before the fight. I know how it is to be devastated and to be used as a tool. I was once a normal human boy that was only, and I might regret saying this, interested in porn and perverted stuff." That made Lucy start laughing for the first time in a century as she found it funny to be only interested in porn and perverted stuff. She was laughing so hard that she literally fell from her chair and rolled on the floor laughing. It took a few minutes for her to get her breath back before sitting up, but she was almost sent into another laughing rage as she saw Issei's face that was red from embarrassment and had a pout which she found extremely cute. Sorry, I haven't laughed that way in almost a decade. Sorry, Ice," she said, still collecting her breath as she was now red from laughing with a beautiful smile that made Issei's blush even worse. "It's fine, as long as you have that smile you can laugh at me all you want," he told her sincerely as it was her turn to become red from his words. "As I was saying, I was only interested in porn and perverted stuff before I was asked out on a date that would change my life. As that date was ending, the girl that asked me out turned out to be a fallen angel that was on a mission to murder me. After she did just that, Rias Gremory swooped up and revived me, turning me into her pawn. Though later when we raided the church, I found out from the fallen angel that killed me no less that Rias knew her plans of it and she let me die so that she can use me to get free from a marriage agreement with Riser Phoenix. Thought after me raiding the engagement party I was able to beat him and free Rias, but at first, I was against it as we lost a game against him. Though when Grafia told me about you I knew that there was something about you that felt similar to me. We lost something important to us, you with your brother while I lost my freedom and humanity. So I made a deal with Grafia. I will help you break free from your depression and your sadness in exchange, she will help me go up the ranks and I will finally be free from Rias," Issei said, getting Lucy to look down thinking he was just like everyone else. Though when I saw you and how you behaved when Grafia left, I could tell that what you did in her presence was a very good mask and that you were also hurting even more inside. That's what gave me resolve to help you no matter the cost. And have that beautiful face without having a real smile on. Issei told her honestly with a sad face as he lowered his head looking at the floor, as he knew that there was nothing wrong in telling her, though he was surprised at what she did. Lucy, hearing his story, had a sad look on her face that was replaced with a look of pure rage as she heard what Rias did. Though how he finished it made her have a bright red blush that he thankfully didn't see. She could understand what it was to lose something important. Though Issei didn't lose his family, he lost something also very important. He lost a big part of himself. He lost his freedom and his humanity that from the looks of it he really held in high regard, so to make him feel a little better, she did what she thought would cheer him up. She stood up and walked around the table towards him while Issei was looking down. He didn't see her getting closer to him and eventually hugging him from behind made him go red as his armor, and her warm breath that he felt only made him even more redder. Issei, I can somewhat understand how you feel. You cherished your humanity and what Rias did. If it happened to me I would have killed her 10 times over by now. It looks like you have an incredible will to suppress your hatred and work up the ladder. She softly told him as he slowly turned around to look at her eyes that finally showed some emotions. Lucy? Was all that Issei could say as he was mesmerized by her beauty, and being this near her was like he was contemptuous. Now then Issei, I think it's time you heard my story. It's only fair since you told me yours. Lucy told him as she released a hug that made Issei want to protest, but he kept that inside of him. As Lucy returned back in her seat, she took a moment collecting herself before looking directly into Issei's eyes. Issei could practically feel that what she was about to tell him was something that was a very sour subject and that it was still something that was hurting her a lot. Lucy, if you are not ready to tell me I can wait. Like I said, I have all the time in this world and I will be here with you until you are ready. Okay? He told her gently. It was his turn to hug her, getting her eyes to go wide at his words. Lucy slowly turned around in his hug and hugged him back while putting her head on his shoulder as she started to sob uncontrollably. As it turned out, her emotions were hitting an all-time high. She thought she had cried all the tears she had on that day when Euclid died. She was now proven wrong. As Lucy was crying into his shoulder, Issei did the only thing he could in this situation. He just caressed her long silver hair that was as soft as silk and was smelling like fresh flowers that made him hug her a little more tightly as her tears were soaking his shirt even more, but he didn't care at all. All that was important to him was to let Lucy release all that pent-up emotions that were inside of her. After more than 10 minutes, Lucy finally stopped crying as she weakly lifted her face from his shoulder to see him looking at her with a smile that made her heart skip a bit and her face to adore a beautiful red color as she felt his hand run down her hair. She would admit later that seeing him hold her like this made her secure and made her want to be held by him even more. She could tell by his firm and yet soft hold on her that he was holding her like she was his treasure. Just how a dragon would protect what was his with all his might. She smiled softly as she remembered that the boy who was holding her was also a part dragon, as he was a red dragon emperor. As she slowly, almost reluctantly, removed herself from his embrace, she could see that he was almost protesting that he couldn't hold her, which made her smile softly at him with a blush on her face. "Thank you, Ice. I needed that," Lucy answered before she yawned as she felt herself getting extremely tired. The fight and her emotions were enough to make her need sleep. Smiling, Issei just nodded before he chuckled at her yawn, which made her go full red this time as she playfully hit him in the arm as he started laughing. "Jerk." She mumbled to herself with a pout, but when she heard him laughing, even more, she was red like his balance breaker. Sorry, your face was just too cute to resist. Anyway, you go to bed. I assume that you have a free room here for me to use while staying here with you?" Issei asked her as she just nodded with steam coming out her ears as she heard what he said about her. "Yeah, there are plenty of rooms here for you to use. I will show you mine, and you can take the one next to me, so if you need anything you will know where I am," she answered as she collected herself. "Sweet. Though one question. Where are all the servants? I figured there would be a lot of them here. When Grafia comes they are getting their day off since they all agreed that they would leave both of us to have a day for ourselves. I'm actually grateful for that. They kept me sane all this time," Lucy said as she started to make her way towards her room while showing Issei where other stuff was in the castle. As the day was slowly coming to a close and the sun was slowly setting and was replaced by a moon, Issei decided to take a walk to recap what happened today while Lucy was asleep resting from the eventful day that she had. He was rewinding the events of this day, however he was brought out of his thoughts the moment he saw a magic circle that had a Grimoire symbol a little away from him appear. Stepping out of it was none other than the Grafia that was dressed in a black shirt with silver straps and light blue jeans with black sneakers. Seeing him, Graphia showed him a smile that was similar to Lucy's, but unlike hers, it showed more of a family smile like a big sister's one. As they both neared each other, Graphia brought Issei into a tight hug that made him go red for what seemed like the 100th time today. I'm glad that you are alright. Lucy can be ballistic when dealing with anyone that isn't me. She told him in a soft tone as she released him and looked at him to see if there were any injuries on him. Yeah, I saw. Though you don't need to worry, I'm alright as is Lucy, she is sleeping right now. Looks like the fight and her emotions exhausted her way too much. Issei answered as he saw Graphia widen her eyes a little. As she showed emotions. She asked in disbelief. Nodding, Issei explained to her what happened after the fight. Graphia was at first shocked that Lucy did what she did, but later smiled widely at seeing that her baby sister was finally recovering. Issei, let's go back to the castle. I talked with Surzik and he told me it's okay for me to take a few days off to see how both of you are doing. Sure, I was finished with my walk anyway. Issei replied with a small smile. But that both of them started walking back towards the castle that was Graphia and Lucy's home, Issei asked about the things that transpired back home during his time here with a silvered-haired heiress. To say that Issei was laughing at what he was told would be an understatement. He along with Graphia were laughing while Drag and Elsha were both roaring in his head at what they heard from the strongest queen. Apparently, Rias was demanding to know where Issei was, while the rest of Orc was also in agreement with her. While Rias was fuming at Graphia for not wanting to answer her about his whereabouts, Chelsea, who got tired of hearing her annoying voice, decided to use her gear and stealthily came behind Rias and with a chop to the neck, knocked her out while saying finally peace and quiet. That made all the members of Orc about to charge her, but were frozen in place by Graphia, who let a bit of her power leak out, stopping them in their place. Rias recovered after about 5 minutes. She was furious, but before she could attack, Graphia froze her completely to let her cool down, making the three girls laugh at Ria's misfortune. XX. After coming inside the living room, Graphia told him to find a seat and relax while she makes some tea for the three of them, as she felt that Lucy was waking up from her sleep. She knew that Lucy was never a sleepy person and that she would sleep for an hour or two max if she was tired. As soon as Graphia returned, he poured 3 cups of tea. Lucy entered the room wearing a simple purple top with grey shorts and slippers, making Issei blush madly at seeing her. Seeing his face become bright red made Lucy show off her real smile that made him have steam come out of his ears seeing it. Her smile is so amazing. Issei thought as he followed her form. As Graphia watched him, she couldn't help but not smile, seeing the silent interaction between the two youths. She remembered that it was almost the same thing with her. She at first hated Surzik, but after fighting him almost all the time during the war, her hatred slowly turned into love, the same she now saw in both Issei and Lucy. Only difference is their progress was far quicker than what she had. Well, that is something I didn't see in a long time, Lucy. You are smiling again, it's nice compared to your fake one. Graphia told her as she had taken a seat opposite of Issei. Thank you sis, it's nice to be free from those thoughts. Lucy answered as she sat herself beside Issei, making both of them blush. Not that both of them minded that they were close. In contrast, it made Issei relax while it made Lucy feel secure. Nodding with a smile, Graphia suddenly turned serious, making both of them gulp with a little fear. They both knew that Graphia won't do anything to them. It was still unnerving to see her serious-eyed. Now I assume that Issei told you about his story, correct Lucy? Graphia asked her little sister. Nodding, Lucy answered her. Yeah, he did, and I can understand why you sent him to help me. You both have my gratitude. Issei just shook his head at that. You don't need to thank me, I would do anything to help someone in trouble no matter how much it took. Lucy turned to look at him and again smiled, making him mentally swear to protect that beautiful smile that she heard and to keep her safe from anything that would endanger it. Nodding, Graphia turned to Issei and told him why she had come here. Ice, there is a reason why I came here. I know that Lucy most likely tried to tell you why she was in that state, but couldn't, so I will tell you. Keep in mind you too, what I tell you doesn't leave this room. Understood? Graphia questioned. Steadying himself, Issei nodded at her, feeling ready to hear what happened to Lucy. As Lucy also steadied herself to hear it from Graphia's point. It all started after the Great War, as 3 sides were left decimated without their leaders. The descendants of the original Mayus wanted to continue what their fathers started, seeing that it would lead to the complete annihilation of the Devil's race. At first, I was like you, Lucy, thinking that we are the strongest, but as the anti-Satan faction formed, I started to realize that even if we marched with our full force and somehow managed to win, it would be the worst kind of Pyrrhic victory. With a completely destroyed race, and with nothing to gain out of it. The other factions would pick off the scraps that were left, and there would be nothing of us left. Completely forgotten by history. Oh, that was after I met Surzik on a field of battle. Surzik, and after battling him for hours and hours I finally understood why he was against the next great war. Grafia stopped a little to let it settle into their minds, and after a minute or so Lucy's and Issei's eyes went wide as they understood it crystal clear. If they went to war it would be the end of devil kind. Clear and simple. Now, after I understood it I tried to make you both Lucy and Euclid understand it also, but you were too blinded by the words of those bastards to hear it clearly. So on that fateful day, when the final battle was taking place, Surzik did what he did, though he didn't want to kill him, he was aiming at you to make you unconscious, so he could fight Euclid without you jumping in between, but somehow he underestimated Euclid and unleashed more power than he should have killing him. Grafia told her sadly as both her and Issei saw that Lucy had tears in her eyes. Issei quickly pulled her into a hug to let her know that he was now here for her. After a few moments Lucy collected herself enough for Grafia to continue. Lucy nodded a little too. Grafia made her continue the story. After that event, as you remember Lucy, you were in prison as a POW, but on both of Surzik and mine intervention you were released. Though after that he tried to apologize several times, but you would just attack him, which would force him to leave, not wanting to hurt you even more than he already did. Though now that Issei managed to break through your defenses and make you open up a little, it looks like it all went well. Yes, it all ended up good. You don't have to worry Grafia, I will do whatever is in my power to keep Lucy safe and sound. Even if it kills me. Issei told them with passion as the fire was burning in his eyes that made Grafia have a big smile, while Lucy was bright red with steam coming from her ears at his passionate words. What is happening to me? Lucy thought as she looked at Issei before quickly looking away as he turned to her. This reaction made Grafia giggle a little. It is nice to hear Issei, and like both Surzik and I told you, your path to freedom is now on the right track. If you manage to surpass your own abilities and keep doing what is thought impossible you will be very soon on becoming a high-class devil. Grafia answered him, making his eyes go wide with a big smile on his face at the thought of being free. Lucy, hearing that her sister was helping Issei, also smiled a little as she knew that he deserved it after fighting two high-class devils and coming out on top. She would only hope that, when Issei became a high-class, that he wouldn't forget her and move on. Though Issei was thinking of asking Lucy to become his queen when he got his pieces, since he would love to have her with him all the time, as he felt that she was the one that made him feel at peace and relaxed in her presence. She so far has been the only one out of all the girls to make him feel this way. As the two of them were in their thoughts, Grafia decided it was time to leave and give them some time for them, as she could see the love forming in them. Grafia would love to have Issei as a brother-in-law. It would be a lot of fun teasing him in the future over this. Now it's time for me to leave. Enjoy your stay here Issei, this is now your home also, and I don't think that Lucy will argue with me on this one. Grafia told them, breaking their thoughts as both looked at her and nodded. Well, I will come later for you eyes, but for now take care both of you lovebirds. Grafia told them her goodbye with a sly smirk before teleporting away, leaving a steaming red duo glued to their seats. Without turning to face him Lucy spoke. So what do you say we both call it a night and talk about more things in the morning? Why yeah, let's do that. Issei dumbly answered as both of them stood up and departed towards their room. As Issei was in his bed he started to have a little conversation with Drake and Elsha about what to do next. Since he was fairly sure that from this point on things are going to get even more difficult for him. So guy, what do you think the future holds for us? Ice, that is a hard question to answer, but I suggest that you keep training and getting stronger so you can continue to protect those who you love and care for. Elsha answered him in a soft tone that made him nod. Yeah, you are right, though that begs the question, when are we going to cash in on the deal that we made before the fight with Achikin? He questioned, making Elsha hum for a moment. I think when you receive your pieces then I will tell you, that way we can be certain that you can do what is tasked from you, fair? She answered him in a sly voice that made him blush a little. Fair, though you know that I will do it even at the cost of my life to bring you back, right? He asked, only to receive a giggle from her as an answer. I know, but there isn't a rush for it, so you don't have to worry. At that moment Drake decided to make his voice heard also. As he was pleased with his host for battling an opponent of Lucy caliber and on his own no less. Partner, I must say you surprised me with how you handled Lucy. I remembered that she gave quite a grief to those that battled her, but looks like you are growing at an abnormal speed. He praised his host. Thank you Drake, that means a lot coming from you, though I'm worried about what will happen next. Issei said in a worried voice. Before Elsha or Drake could answer they heard a knock on the door that made Issei lift himself a little up in his king-size bed. The blanket fell down into his lap, revealing his bare chest and abs that would make any girl crazy over them. It's open. He said loudly so it could be heard from the other side. As soon as he said that, the door opened up to reveal Lucy in her purple PJ with her hair tied up into a ponytail with a nervous smile on her face. "Lucy, what are you doing here? I thought that you were asleep." Issei asked as Lucy moved closer to his bed before sitting on the edge with her back turned towards him. "I was asleep, but I was awakened by the nightmares that I had that day, the one my sister mentioned," she answered him sadly. As he lifted himself completely forward, he turned Lucy around to face him, which made her blush madly seeing his naked upper body that was well built and had six packs, before hugging her tight and whispering into her ear, making her blush red even more from his bare touch. "It's alright Lucy, what I told Grafia was true. I will make sure that you are safe and sound. I will protect you with all of my might, even if it would spell the end for me," he softly whispered, making Lucy hug him back even tighter than he was her. "Thank you. You're the first person to do this much for me," she answered honestly as she felt him loosening his embrace of her. "Lucy, is there any way I can help you?" he softly asked her with a smile. Nodding, she replied in a shy voice that Issei found irresistible. Would you let me sleep with you? Just for tonight, I would feel much better than sleeping alone." Smiling brightly, Issei nodded and moved to the side, lifting his blanket to let the Lucifugeris enter. As soon as Lucy was in the bed, she quickly hugged him, feeling his well-built body and heat coming from him. He was like the best pillow she could imagine. "If it helps tonight, then we can do this every night. I will do anything to help you," Issei responded truthfully, getting a soft nod from Lucy. Issei unknowingly started to hum and sing my demons to help him fall asleep, since he started doing this after the recent events. However, it also helped Lucy since she found his voice soothing, and within a few moments, Lucy was asleep with a smile on her face. That made Issei smile as well as he gently stroked her hair softly, hearing a few soft moans coming from the sleeping beauty that was next to him. But that Issei also closed his eyes, falling to sleep after his song. Newly formed love. As Issei was opening his eyes in the morning, he felt a weight on top of him. Looking down, he saw Lucy using him as a pillow with her head on his chest while snuggling into his chin, her warm breath that he felt on his neck, making him blush. Her big and firm breasts that were soft to the touch were hard pressed to his side. She had her left arm over him while she had her left leg found its way over and under his leg. Her right hand was under his left arm while her right leg was close to his left leg with a bend. As Issei looked at Lucy, he started smiling, seeing her have a content smile on her face that made him blush lightly until he felt where his hand was. Blushing a darker shade of red with a tiny nosebleed, he noticed his hand was right above Lucy's ass, and when he moved his hand slightly, he heard a soft moan come from Lucy, making his nose bleed bigger as he felt her firm and soft ass that was making his down twin be wide awake and ready. Though before Issei could do anything, he felt Lucy slowly stir and open her eyes that were now full of life and shinier. As Lucy opened her eyes and let out a yawn, she felt that she was on top of something firm and warm. Looking around her a little, her dark blue eyes met chocolate brown ones. Staring at them for a few more seconds, her brain finally started working as her face started to turn from porcelain white to dark red as she finally felt and understood why she was seeing those brown eyes. As the two of them stared at each other, both having their faces colored in dark red, Issei was completely overrun by his perverted side. He wanted to touch her ass, her big and soft breasts that were so close to his hands, and he honestly wanted to turn her around and take her there for himself, but his self-control that he was working so hard on somehow stopped him from doing that. But that didn't stop his twin from becoming rock hard as he looked at her breasts that were perfect, not too small or too big, they were perfect in size and shape, they were firm, but also soft to the touch. That's what could cause him trouble from the heiress, as from the look on her face and steam coming from her ears felt it, and he hoped that he won't get killed. But to his shock and relief, Lucy just smiled brightly, her face still dark red as it was, but she felt glad that he didn't try anything to her without her consent. Though she was secretly glad that she had this much of an effect on him, since she felt his erection, and that thought alone made her have steam coming out of her ears. "That morning, Lucy," Issei said in a stuttered voice, while his nosebleed worsened as he saw her lifting her upper body, giving him a quick view of her cleavage that made his eyes go a little wide. "Morning ice," Lucy told him while untangling herself, but not leaving his side as she again lowered her head to his chest, welcoming the warmth that it provided her. She would personally love to never get up, but she knew she would need to do it soon, though that didn't mean that she couldn't enjoy the moment with Issei. "So how are you feeling now, Lucy?" Issei asked, not knowing how to start a conversation with her as the silence entered as she again laid her head on his chest. Giggling a bit, Lucy turned her head a little and sent him the most beautiful smile he ever saw. "I feel better than ever. I never slept this good in my whole life." "That's great, I'm glad that you are feeling better, Lucy," Issei answered her in a soft, gentle voice, making her giggle again. "And I thank you for being the one to make me feel better and staying here," she told him. "I will stay here as long as you will like me to stay, and when and if I need to return home, you are more than welcome to come with me." Issei told her, making her eyes go wide and a smile widened on her face. You would really bring me with you to the human world? Lucy asked just to make sure that she heard it right. She felt something deep inside of her starting to burn when she saw Issei smiled. Nodding his head, he answered her with a smile that grew. Of course, I told you that I will always be there for you, so if that means you are coming to the human world then so be it, and you can stay at my place. I'm sure my parents would love to have you as a daughter. Hearing his answer, Lucy couldn't help herself as she quickly hugged him with all of her might while yelling. Thank you, Issei. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That answer erased all doubts and frightening thoughts that Lucy had. She even in her wildest dreams couldn't dream of this. Someone actually caring for her, someone willing to be close and genuinely nice to her. It was like she finally found her reason to live and love. Even though her hug hurt him, Issei refused to let her happiness die down because of it. He would endure it as much as needed so that he could see that beautiful smile more and feel her soft and gentle body even more. This solidifies his word to protect her and to make her always have that smile on her face that he was falling in love with. You are more than welcome, Lucy. Like I said yesterday, I will do everything in my power to protect you and to make you feel happy, and if you coming with me makes you feel happy then I'm all up for it. He said with a smile that made Lucy want to kiss him, but she refrained from doing it as she felt it would be way too soon for them. Ice, you are the nicest person that I have ever met. Lucy said in a sweet tone that made him blush. Thank you, so what are your plans for today, Lucy? He asked as he slowly stood up to her protest. Well, honestly I didn't plan anything, so we could do whatever you want. She answered as she also stood up and sat on the edge of the bed. What do you say about you showing me around the castle some more, and then we could take a walk through the forest and maybe have a picnic on the meadows that I saw when I was having a walk before Rias showed up? Issei asked her, seeing her have a thinking face for a moment before she nodded furiously with a smile. That's perfect, Ice, I love it. Though let's make breakfast first and then I will show you some more around. Works for me, I'm pretty hungry. Issei said, and to reinforce his words, his stomach rumbled making him blush from embarrassment. Giggling a bit, Lucy excused herself as she went to get changed and to give Issei time to do the same. As the both of them finished their breakfast and Issei's tour around the place he would be staying from now on, since he planned on being here a lot more. He couldn't help but be in awe at the things he saw. Every room that Lucy showed him was as big as his house back in the human world. There were at least 4 or 5 swimming pools and at least the same number of game rooms full with every type of game you could imagine. There was also a library, a recreation room with a theater in it, servants' rooms, and a training room that Lucy told him could handle Grafia at full power with ease. Issei thought that meeting the servants that kept the place clean and tidy would be a frightening thing, but he was pleasantly surprised when he saw that they were very grateful to him for breaking through Lucy's barriers and making her smile like she used to. Though that, of course, didn't stop them from teasing them a little at seeing that Lucy was holding Issei's arm tightly and her head was on his shoulder all the time, making both of them blush profoundly at that. Though none of them could be angry at them since both of them enjoyed it and secretly hoped to be with each other. As the tour ended, they made their way to explore the nature that was calming and inviting to them. As Issei suggested, they packed for a picnic, though Lucy made sure that she was the one that made all of the food and prepared everything for it, as she was trying to impress Issei at her cooking skills and for it to be a thank you to him for his hard work and for helping her. After walking through the forest for about half an hour where they were talking and getting to know each other, they made it to one of the meadows that was on a small hill that wasn't too far from the castle. Making themselves comfortable on the picnic blanket, Lucy brought out the food that she made and some drinks. Looking at what was made of Issei's mouth water. It looked like Lucy went all out on this one and he was sure as hell that he was going to eat all of it. Wow, Lucy, this looks delicious. You really went all out, haven't you? He asked the silver-haired beauty that was leaning on his shoulder with a smile. Yes, I tried my hardest to make it. I hope it's good and that you like it. She answered, closing her eyes as she was still leaning on Issei's arm while letting herself enjoy nature and his presence to the fullest. Until only a day before today, she would have never imagined herself being here and doing this with anyone. Though after yesterday, and doing this now, she couldn't imagine doing this with anyone other than Issei, and she would be damned if she let Issei go and go back to her old self. If it tastes as good as it looks and smells, then I have no doubt in my mind that it would be perfect. Issei told her as he took a bite of the food and widened his eyes. Issei tasted all kinds of food and has experienced some of the best and worst foods out there, but this, what Lucy made, just blew his mind. It was perfect, it was almost melting in his mouth and made him want even more. This is the best food I ever tasted. Lucy, you are a fantastic cook. Issei praised her for getting a blush in response. Thank you, like I said I tried my best as thanks for all of your hard work in helping me. She shyly answered him and that made him smile. Smiling, Issei patted her head, causing the poor girl to have steam coming out of her ears from his gesture. As Lucy opened her eyes, she couldn't help but hug Issei and start eating the food that she made with him while watching the nature in front of them that made both of them at awe. Returning from their picnic date, both of them found Grafia and Surzik were waiting for them, with the latter finally managing to apologize for that incident that made her desolate, much to his joy. After that, all of them sat down with a servant bringing the tea and leaving them to have a chat in private. "So why are you here, sister?" Lucy asked, but unlike her usual hollow voice, this one was full of emotion, making the silver-haired woman smile. "I'm here to inform Issei that he is due to return home. He has missed school and he still has obligations to Rias as much as he hates it." Grafia answered her, making Lucy tense at the thought of Issei leaving her, but to her relief, Issei was planning on keeping his promise to her. "Grafia Surzik, is there a possibility for Lucy to come, live at my place, and go to Kuo Academy with me?" That question made both adults widen their eyes. They didn't think that Issei and Lucy would become this close in such a short amount of time, and honestly, they were glad that they did. Because now they were certain that Lucy would be happy, and that was all that mattered to them. "I see no problem in that, don't you, Grafia?" Surzik said, turning to his wife, who shook her head, having a smile. "None. You have our permission. Though I do wonder how Rias is going to react to this turn of events." She questioned with a mischievous smile that made Surzik pale as he sensed a rise in Lucy's power at the mention of his sister's name. "That reminds me. I will need to have a little chat with her and that crow that murdered Ice in cold blood." Lucy spoke in a voice that promised certain death with an overly sweet smile on her face. That made Issei and Surzik pray to everyone they knew Lucy would kill Rias, but also to not destroy Japan in the process. Lucy, I think that Issei has that base covered. Now could you please lower your aura? It's kind of scary." Surzik said, quickly seeing something that he wouldn't want even his worst enemy to see. Lucy's eyes were glowing ominous dark blue at the rage she was feeling at the thought of Issei being a victim to not only that crow, but also Rias. Issei softly put his hand on her shoulder, and it was like someone pressed a switch. Lucy's rising aura quickly vanished as she felt her crush's soft hand, making her realize that he was there, and that thought alone calmed her down. Seeing that Lucy calmed down by Issei's touch, Surzik sighed in relief. He couldn't believe that he again dodged another nuclear explosion that would happen if Issei wasn't there. Thanking him in his head, Surzik collected himself before going into detail about Lucy's coming to the human world. "Now Lucy, while we allow you to do as you please, try and not antagonize Rias and her peerage too much, try to be as nice as possible to them. I know Rias can be a handful, but please, for the sake of the country of Japan and their inhabitants, try not to blow it up if you would." Surzik told her, hoping that Lucy will contain her rage when she sees his sister. "Also Lucy, we will arrange for you to be in Issei's class so the two of you could be together more." Grafia told them before gaining a sly smirk on her face. "Though try and keep the mushy stuff to the minimum if you will. While in school at least." That made both Lucy and Issei go wide-eyed and have an atomic blush that made the adults start laughing hard at them. As all four of them contained themselves, Lucy and Issei with their blush and Grafia and Surzik with their laughter, there was only one thing to figure out before concluding the talks, and that was where Lucy will sleep. Though that was easily solved when Issei told them that she could stay in his home and that his parents always wanted a daughter. Making Lucy blush again while Grafia just smiled. "Well, that was all we wanted to tell you, and now we will take our leave. Keep her safe, Issei." Grafia told them as she created a magic circular to depart with Surzik. "Oh, one more thing, Issei. I received word from the angels that some trouble may be on the horizon, so keep a lookout. If what I think is coming, then that would be your chance to get promoted to middle class even sooner." Surzik told them before teleporting away, with Grafia leaving the duo confused at what he meant by trouble. Turning to face each other, they both stood up before Lucy tackled him to the ground and kissed him hard on the lips, making his eyes go wide with shock and pleasure as he felt how soft her lips are. After a moment or two, Lucy lifted her head a little bit, showing him a smile that was so beautiful that he wondered if goddesses had this much beauty behind a smile, but Lucy's smile made him blush and his heart stopped for a moment. Where did that come from?" Issei asked slowly, still in shock at what Lucy did. Replying in a shy tone with her face red and having a smile, Lucy answered him. "You did so much for me in 2 days than some people did in over 10 years. I can't express how happy I am to be here with you. You broke all of my shields and made me realize that for the first time in my life I am not going to be used as a tool, and you showed me how much you care for me, and even after that fight we had, you were still here for me. Showing me kindness and beauty that lies beyond these castle doors. So when you get to become high class, you can rely on me to be there by your side, and if you ever want to have me in your peerage, then I would be more than happy to accept your offer." As she said those words, it was Issei's turn to kiss her, making her eyes wide before she relaxed and gave herself unconditionally to him. As they continued to make out, Issei licked her soft lips with his tongue asking for entry. Lucy immediately led him as their tongues started a battle for dominance. Feeling a little bit of his old pervertedness coming back, Issei softly lowered his arm down her back all the way to her ass, softly squeezing it making her moan in response. They continued to kiss until they felt the need for air. As their lips parted, Issei put her head on his shoulder, whispering to her ears words that made her even happier. "I would be honored to have you by my side, Lucy, and when I get my pieces I will give you the pieces that truly represent you in every sense of it. I love you, Issei." Lucy told him, her head still on his shoulder, her face having atomic blush and her ears letting loose steam from them. Making it painfully oblivious that she used a lot of her courage to confess to him. Hearing this, Issei couldn't be happier, because in this short 2 days where he was by her side made him realize that he had fallen for her the moment he saw her, and the more time he spent with her, the more he wanted to have her closer to him and hold her tightly and securely in his arms, never wanting to let go of her. "I love you too, Lucy," Issei told her with a huge smile that made her cry out of happiness that she finally found someone to love her and for her to love back. Though that was also Issei's thought as he was able to find someone to love and be loved. But that both of them lifted themselves up, and as soon as both of them were on their feet, Lucy grabbed his hand into her and intervened with their fingers while putting her head on his shoulder while having a content smile. "You know, Ice, that was my first kiss," Lucy said with a small blush as Issei smiled. "Why do I have a feeling that won't be the only first I take?" Issei said perversely that made Lucy's blush worsen at what he was implying. "Let's go to sleep, Lucy, we have a lot to do tomorrow." "Okay?" he softly asked her, getting a tired nod as an answer. With that, the two of them departed to Issei's room to get some rest before departing to the human world, where one pissed-off red-haired heiress was waiting for her love interest to return to her. It was the morning of a new day as both Lucy and Issei prepared for Grafia to come and to take them to the human world. Though when Grafia arrived to take them to it, she was beyond happy at what she saw and heard. She immediately hugged both of them and wished them happiness and luck. "Now that that's sorted, we will teleport to the Orc building, so Issei expects to be questioned. Oh, and before I forget, your 3 friends that you introduced to me are also there. It looks like Rias demanded that they always come there after school." Grafia informed them of getting a low growl from Issei, but before he could continue to get angrier, Lucy tightened her squeeze on his hand a little, calming him a little bit as he remembered that he now had her beside him. "Sister, when we get there, I trust there won't be a need to introduce myself in a way I don't like?" Lucy asked as her eyes glowed for a fraction of a second, getting a mischief smile from her sibling. "Maybe, maybe not, honestly hard to tell, but I won't stop you unless you go overboard." Grafia told her to get a nod as an answer. After she got a response from her sister, Grafia flared her power teleporting them to Orc. In Orc, Rias tried to get Chelsea to accept her offer of joining her peerage. She didn't want a repeat of what happened when she angered the Auburn girl. Last time she was knocked out not knowing what happened for a few hours, and it still made her wince every now and then. "And why won't they accept my offer? You can have everything." Rias demanded to know why she was refused time and time again. Sighing heavily, Chelsea stood up from her position on one of the couches that Murayama and Caddis were sitting on and walked in front of Ria's desk and glared at her, making Rias flinch from her position in the chair behind her desk. "I thought I told you like a million times. I'm not interested in what you have to offer. I'm only here because of Issei, and if it wasn't for him all 3 of us would be on our way, probably shopping or practicing by now," Chelsea told her in a cold voice. "And what makes you think I would let you see my pawn if you don't accept my offer?" Rias asked in a smug tone as she was not going to decline this time. Chelsea just smirked at her and told her in a sweet tone. "Oh my, what am I going to do now? No, I will just hang out with him at school, after school, and when he is in training. Yeah, I think that's good. Girls, what do you say?" Chelsea turns around to the kendo duo, seeing them start laughing and winking at them to play along. "Why yeah, oh what would we do now that we can't see Issei more than 15 hours a day? How are we going to survive, Caddis?" Murayama laughingly asked her best friend as she started having fake tears. Sob, I don't know." "Ah." Caddis fake cried as both Murayama and Chelsea started rolling on the floor from laughing hard, making Rias furious. Turning away from the trio that was currently making fun of her, she saw that her peerage was doing what they did after their victory over Riser, that was nothing. Debo was relaxing while reading some novel and drinking tea, while Raynare and Kaneko were eating sweets and having a staring contest, while Akeno was giggling at Ria's yet again failed attempt to recruit members. Though the laughter was cut a little short when all of them noticed a magic circle appearing in the middle of the room. Everyone stopped what they were doing and focused their attention on it. Seeing that it belonged to her clan, Rias was smiling from ear to ear, eagerly awaiting for her love interest that she still hasn't given up on. Well, Murayama and Caddis and a little bit of Chelsea were still at odds seeing it. But they were all surprised as from it emerged 3 people. 2 were girls that looked a lot alike. Though they immediately identified Grafia, while another girl was a mystery. Though the third person was none other than Issei Hyodo. But what made all girls mad was seeing their love interest holding hands with a girl that was a mystery to all of them, except to Grafia and Issei. Issei, Hyodo, weakling, pervert. Those were the shouts that he was greeted with, making him sweat a little, while the girl that was holding his hand giggled a little bit at their outburst. I figured that you were popular with ladies, but this much, Yufufu, I didn't know. Looks like I have competition him. Lucy said as he put her head on his shoulder, making a lot of girls get angry at what she was doing. And who are you? And what do you think you are doing to my eyes? Rias asked as she flared her power, making her baby blue eyes turn pink as her hair started to go in all directions and her aura to disintegrate papers and a small part of her desk. Issei just glared at Rias and her stupid attempt at being possessive over him, but before he could do anything, Lucy tightened her hand into his and let him know that she would do the talking. Grafia for her part just went to make some tea for all of them since she knew what would happen. She just didn't want to witness what was about to happen. Ah, yes, I thought you looked familiar from somewhere. Now I know, Yufufu, if you are that Surzik little sister. Should have guessed, Issei dear, didn't you say that she would be your soon ex-master? Lucy used a mocking tone, wanting to see Ria's reaction, and boy was it priceless. Hearing the way this mystery girl talked about her and her brother made Rias beyond furious, but she was soon put in her place when Issei stood in between the 2 girls while releasing his aura, making them both a little stiff. Lucy, as much as I would enjoy for you to put her in her place, that would need to wait. Why don't you introduce yourself to others before you let hell loose? Issei softly spoke to her as he put a hand on her shoulder, making her relaxed. Nodding, she stepped to the side of Issei and properly introduced herself, making all of them in shock, even Issei. Hello, and sorry for that, heiress of Gremory House. My name is Lucy Lucifuge Hyodo, heiress of the House of Lucifuge. It is a pleasure to meet you all. Lucy introduced herself with a smirk on her face, seeing that their reaction was priceless again. All of them were in shock at what she told them. Though the only one that was not in shock was Grafia, she was giggling at what her sister was doing. What? Was all that they could ask at hearing her statement. It's like I said. My name is Lucy Lucifuge Hyodo. Younger sister of Grafia Lucifuge, now Gremory, and lover of Issei Hyodo. Rias couldn't believe what she just heard. Issei had a lover now, and it was none other than Grafia's sister, who she didn't know even existed. The trio, consisting of Murayama, Caddis, and Chelsea, were also in shock. They would never have imagined that Issei would find a lover and that said lover would be so beautiful. They all knew that they had lost this war. As the girl in front of them outmatched them in all aspects. Lucy was without a doubt very beautiful, her figure and her porcelain white skin along with her curves gave them a clear message that they had no chance in hell or heaven at winning Issei's heart. Though they were surprised when Lucy saw their looks at her and gave them a wink before returning to stare at Rias, who was now beyond furious. What do you mean, Grafia's sister? I never heard about you, Rias shouted at her, feeling a strong urge to disintegrate the silver-haired girl in front of her. It's like I said. I'm her sister, and I would be grateful if you lower your tone before I make you do it, little spoiled princess. Lucy said in a cold voice that made them all flinch a little. Rias started to say, but Grafia cut her short before Lucy will freeze her for good. What Lucy says is true. She is my little sister, and you don't know because until only yesterday, Lucy was almost unreachable to everyone that wasn't me, and after yesterday, Issei. Though I would like to remind you, Rias, that Lucy is way beyond your level of power as she managed to fight and survive during the Civil War, so I would watch what I say if I were you. Grafia instructed Rias, but to her luck, she didn't listen. I don't care what or who you are. Hands off my ice or I will blow you away, you fucking slut. Rias yelled, but little did she knew that she just released a demon that was sleeping deep inside of Lucy for a long time. Instead of getting furious, Lucy just started laughing hard, holding her stomach at her insult. She is going to enjoy this, and now that Rias made the first move, she knew that Grafia won't get between them. Ha ha ha, now that's funny, I'm a slut because I'm with a man I love, and he loves me back. Ha ha ha, oh, this is going to be fun. Issei love, please don't stop us, I would rather not hurt you in the process. That goes to your 3 friends also. Lucy said as her eyes started shining dark blue, making Grafia sigh and move to stand near Issei, with the trio moving close to Issei for their safety. Get behind me, ladies, and watch the show. Issei instructed the 3 girls as Grafia giggled softly at Issei's comment. The show was about to begin, and they weren't going to miss it. Lucy winked at them with a smile and turned back to Rias and her peerage, smiling darkly. And you honestly intend to fight all of us? Rias asked in a mock tone as her peerage formed a defensive formation with Kiba and Kaneko in front, Raynare and Akeno got behind them protecting Rias. All of them flaring their power to the max in an attempt to scare her. Which had the opposite effect. Seeing their attempt to scare her, Lucy started laughing again at how weak they were. Really, that is the best you can do? Oh, I'm going to enjoy ripping you apart, Rias, and that fallen angel Raynare, for hurting Issei the way you did. Lucy told them in a voice that made all of them pale, even Grafia, as she only once heard it, and that was when Lucy annihilated entire battalions of high class and ultimate class devils when they killed their father. Grafia may be a devil, but that didn't stop her from praying for the survival of Japan. We are not scared of you. Rias said in complete confidence until she saw Lucy unleashing her power that made the whole building shake. You were saying, you whiny little bitch. Lucy asked in a sweet tone that was clear to everyone that there will be a lot of blood soon to clean up. Kiba, Kaneko, attack her. Rias ordered quickly as both of her pieces charged at Lucy, only for her to vanish from the spot where she stood as Kiba brought his blade down on her. Everyone except Issei and Grafia was looking everywhere to see Lucy, but they found where she was moments later as they all heard Akeno scream as she was sent flying at the wooden doors that were on the other side of the room. Quickly reacting, Raynare formed a spear of light and threw it at Lucy, only for her to take a hold of it and break it in half, but before she could do anything to the fallen angel she wanted to hurt the most. She was forced to move as Kiba charged at her in full speed, only for her to again vanish and appear near Kaneko, sending a powerful kick to the side, sending her through the wall. With two members out of the way, Lucy turned her attention to the troublesome knight that was getting on her last nerves. Quickly using her advantage in speed, Lucy appeared near Kiba, sending a powerful punch to his gut, making him spit a blob of blood and kneeling down, having no strength to continue. Seeing that the only member of her peerage that was left was Raynare, Rias started to sweat and shake a little in fear at the power Lucy had. She never thought that someone this strong existed. She thought that the four Mayus, Grafia and her cousin were the strongest she knew. She was greatly mistaken. As Lucy turned her attention to the last remaining opposition, she let out a dark chuckle at what was left. She expected them to be at least as strong as Issei was without his booster gear, but she was mistaken. I thought this is going to be a challenge, they are weak as shit. Lucy thought, but to everyone's surprise, Issei appeared just before Lucy could start demolishing the two girls that were left. Grabbing her hand, Issei spun Lucy around and kissed her on the lips, making her dark thoughts vanish in a flash. As she continued to enjoy the kiss, moving her arms around his neck, Rias and Raynare were left speechless at what was happening, while Grafia and the trio of girls sighed in relief that Lucy didn't dismantle them piece by piece in the most painful way. Though relief quickly changed in jealousy at the thought that she was making out with a guy they all loved. Seeing that Lucy was calmer, Issei slapped her ass hard, making the girls blush, and Lucy let out a moan at what he did. Now that you proved your point, I think it's time for us to leave. Don't you think? Issei asked her, getting a shy nod of her head as a response. With a nod he turned to the trio and Grafia and with his eyes told them to follow him, but before he could leave Rias decided to speak. Wait, where do you think you are going, Ice? I would not allow you to be in that bitch's presence. Rias told him with authority that it was short-lived as Issei let go of Lucy and stood in front of Rias with his booster gear at the ready. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. He softly said as the gear started to shine brightly and Drake's voice was heard. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Drake's voice roared. As soon as Drake roared, Issei was consumed in a bright red light that made everyone speechless except Lucy, who was one of the two people who fought him in it. She smiled softly seeing him in his red draconic armor. Where Issei stood now was a red warrior clad from head to toe in armor plating that looked as strong as diamonds. The mere presence of the armor sent shivers of fear down Rias and Raynare's spine as they were now facing something well above their league. They were facing something that was a reincarnation of a being of pure domination. Issei, seeing them all start to shake in fear, removed his helmet and lifted his armored arm as a red orb of energy started to generate in it. Rias Gremory, this is your final warning, stop ordering me around, or I swear to God, Satan, Dragon God or any other god there is, I will obliterate you without a second thought. I only fought Riser for the sole purpose of getting closer to being free and helping Grafia and bringing Lucy back. If it wasn't for that you would be getting fucked senseless by Riser, so thank Grafia and Lucy for me helping you. With that said, Issei released his armor and took Lucy's hand much to her happiness and left with Chelsea, Murayama and Caddis following him, while Grafia waited for a moment before she turned around, but not before telling Rias something that made her a crying mess. If I were you I would watch what you say. You were lucky that Issei was here to stop her, because Lucy would have torn you apart piece by piece. You had your chance to get his love, but the moment he learned the truth, you lost everything and he is now on the highway to high class and getting a strong peerage. But that said, Grafia left for Issei and Lucy was waiting for her. Gathering clouds. As soon as Grafia left the club room, Rias contacted her brother demanding to know about this Lucy girl being sisters with Grafia and that she was alive during the Civil War. Surzik explained to Rias that Lucy wasn't someone to meddle with and asked why she wanted to know that, but the answer made him white as a ghost as he heard that Lucy attacked them and that she had beaten Kiba, Kaneko, and Akeno without any problem. Rias also explained that Lucy said she was now Lucifuge Hyodo, making Surzik sigh in relief at first before he had a shocked face as he heard that Lucy and Issei were together before laughing in happiness at that. Though that happiness was short-lived as Rias was furious that the slut had taken her Issei. Ria's reaction made Surzik sigh before telling her that she was lucky that most likely Issei was the one to stop Lucy before she could do more damage. And for her to count herself lucky as he told her a short story of Lucy making Rias pale as she heard that at one point in time, she was fighting her brother almost equally. Though she asked him if Lucy had something to do with the mission that her Issei was sent on, and to her horror it was, that made her a crying mess, but before she could say or demand anything else, Surzik cut the line and ended the call. As Rias was crying uncontrollably with Raynare hugging her and telling her that all will be right. Though while the orc was recuperating, Issei along with Grafia and the girls was in the Kuo Academy's principal office, getting the final things sorted so Lucy can start attending school. Then Alana Gremory was a beautiful woman as they can see. She looked like she was in her 30s, she had soft brown hair that went to her shoulder. Though she wore Kuo principal outfit that Issei could clearly see that Venelana's huge rack was threatening to burst through the blouse, but before Lucy or any girl could say or do something to stop his perverted side to come through, a magic circle appeared near Grafia's ear, bringing all of their attention to her. As Grafia spoke to the person through the communication circle, they were surprised to hear Grafia starting to laugh. Finishing her call, she turned to them and smirked. "Dear sister, it looks like you did a really good number on Rias. Surzik just called to let me know that Rias is furious and a crying mess." Grafia informed the group, making them all laugh, though Venelana gasped at that. "I don't know what you are talking about, sister. I only introduced myself before she stirred the pot too much," Lucy said as she adores a cat-like smirk, clearly showing that she didn't give a fuck about Rias and her feelings. That made all of them laugh before they felt a powerful aura starting to build up. Turning around to the source of it, they saw Venelana glaring at them, though she had a sweet smile on her face, making the group gulp a little bit. "Now, what was it that I heard about Rias being in a crying mess?" Venelana spoke in a sweet tone that was anything but that. Issei stepped forward without fear as his perverted look changed to a serious one, making the girls blink at the transformation that happened. It made them all take a step back as Issei let his aura out to show Venelana that he wasn't frightened by her. That alone caught her eyes as this young boy was brave enough to stand against her. Even though his was a lot smaller than hers, it still made her have some respect for him. "As much as I want to tell you, Mrs. Gremory, I would have to disappoint you on this one. Though, if you wish to know, why not ask your own children, as I'm sure that both would tell you," Issei told her while looking her directly in her eyes, not blinking or flinching when Venelana raised up the aura and pressure on him. "You dare to say that I'm the wife of the head of the house of Gremory? Do not trifle with me." She threatened to make her word cold. Lucy, seeing that there would be a fight if she doesn't do anything, stepped forward also. "If you wish to fight us, I'm more than willing to let loose and go all out. I'm sure that you know me all too well, mother of Surzik and Rias," Lucy told her as her eyes started to glow dark blue again. Then Alana was surprised when she finally took a good look at Lucy. She almost forgot how she looked. It was way too long since she saw her. Last time she saw Lucy Lucifuge was before the Civil War, and that was when she was a small innocent girl that loved playing around with Grafia and Surzik. Though when the Civil War started, Venelana along with everyone in the Gremory household were shocked about the things that Lucy did on the battlefield. She may be a sweet and gentle girl when not fighting, but when push comes to shove, she was like a force of nature that wreaked chaos everywhere she went. She still remembered what Grafia told her about what happened to a battalion of high-class and ultimate-class devils that murdered their father. Though Grafia was barely subdued when she heard it. Lucy had not so much restrained as she utterly destroyed and disassembled all of them piece by piece from the pure rage that she held for them. Then Grafia and Lucy's brother died on the last day of battle by Surzik hands. It made Lucy desolate, so much so that even Grafia had a hard time with her. Though looking at her now, it looked like she finally found her reason to live as she stood side by side with the Red Dragon Emperor. Though that didn't stop Venelana from getting her answers. If she had to fight Lucy and Issei, then she would. Seeing that Venelana would fight them if necessary, and that Lucy and Issei had each other's back, they were ready to fight back. Grafia decided to tell her before a fight would ensue. "Mother-in-law, I know that you are angry that something might happen to Rias, but you don't have to worry. Other than her pride, nothing is amiss," as Issei stopped Lucy before she could do anything to her. "And are you certain of that, Grafia?" Venelana asked as she decreased her power and mentioned that Rias was fine. It's simple, I was present when Lucy was insulted and attacked. As I said, if Issei wasn't there, we would have to glue Rias back together piece by piece. I tried to warn Rias that Lucy was someone that was way above her league, though she didn't listen, and Lucy had to show it, though she only made her peerage incapable of fighting. Grafia answered again, while others sighed in relief that the danger was gone. If that's the case, then I owe you both an apology. Venelana spoke as she knew she could trust Grafia. She saw her as a daughter, and if Grafia says that the two of them are innocent, then it was very possible. Though that begged another question. Though now that you mention it, why didn't you, Red Dragon Emperor, stop Lucy and protect your master from her in the first place and only stepped up when she was about to attack her? Venelana asked, wanting to know, but unlike how Rias wanted to know an answer, Venelana clearly showed a more polite and smoothing approach, unlike the red-haired heiress. Since you asked nicely and not how Rias asked, I will tell you. Though I knew this in advance, it was because of Grafia and Lucy that I went to that party and saved Rias from Riser. Issei replied in a polite tone. As he told his story, though this time, Elsha decided to also speak, letting them know that she, along with Drag, were a contributing factor to Issei's win. Her voice was full of power, but also gentle as she told them that Issei was willing to sacrifice everything so he could get a shot of being a victor and that he would finally start the road to freedom. Hearing the explanation from the second strongest booster gear possessor made Lucy along with everyone get wide eyes as they looked at Issei, who closed his eyes and have a pout on his face as Elsha laughs at his misfortune. Well, there isn't any way to change Issei back from being a dragon-devil hybrid. That was necessary for Issei to attain his balance breaker. It is unknown to everyone that for the chance to have that legendary move, you have to give Drag a part of your body. Though since Drag is reasonable and he is against taking anything extreme, like hard or anything, when a decision is made by the host he always asks for the left hand where the gear is. So don't worry about Lucy Hyodo, her Murayama, Caddis, and even Chelsea. He will still be the same Issei, though he would have a more dragon-like feeling, his aura will be stronger, as well as a track of both allies and enemies. Speaking of enemies, Rias had attained a very wrong enemy. Venelana Gremory, thank anyone you could think of for Issei not killing her the moment he found out what happened. Elsha explained to them, getting them to nod in understanding. Though that didn't stop Lucy from hugging him tightly while putting her head on his shoulder to let him know that she would be still by his side. Though, no one except Grafia heard what Elsha called Lucy, and it made her happy. With a heavy sigh, Issei nodded his head at Elsha's words. What she just said was true. I sacrificed my left arm so that I could beat him. Though I don't think that this will affect you all too much. I'm still the same Issei. Well, I can't say for others. I'm surprised, but hearing the explanation from Elsha, it looks like you didn't have a choice in the matter. As you can only improve so much before you will just start standing in place. Lucy answered him honestly, which made Issei smile before he turned his head to look at the girls behind him, seeing that all of them nodded in understanding. What Lucy said is right, even if you make your power rival any high class in your base form you could only do so much, but when someone with a higher power comes along, you will be a sitting duck as he would destroy you. So if doing that secures the safety of others then it's all good. Grafia told him as she smiled at him. Murayama, Caddis, and Chelsea just nodded to their words, also having a smile on their face as they knew why he did that. Thank you all, but now to the business. Mrs. Venelana, I hope that you understand my way and hope that there won't be any hard feelings. Surzik understood my words, and I hope you will also. Issei told her as he hoped to still be on good terms with the Gremories since they could be a good ally to him. Yes, I do, and I'm very sorry for what happened. You have my guarantee that you will have the House of Gremories backup when you get independent, and you are still welcome to come to our estate as we see you as a child of ours as much as Grafia is like a daughter to me and my husband. Venelana told him, which made him grateful as he bows before excusing himself and leaving with Grafia telling them that she would later come to tell them something important. As soon as they left, Grafia told Venelana about the danger that was stirring beyond the horizon and told her Surzik planned to secure his promotion and to along the way stop a war that would be coming if Harem Leviathan was to come to the rescue. Getting a nod from the Gremory matriarch, Grafia excused herself and left to go to Issei's home to let them know what was to come. Returning home, Issei introduced Lucy and the girls to his parents. The girls were speechless at the beauty of their parents who looked like they were in their 40s, having only a small amount of wrinkles on their faces. Issei's mom had brown hair that was similar to how Murayama had hers, and she was wearing a simple pink shirt with brown jeans, while Issei's father, who also has brown hair, though it was similar like Issei's only shorter, he wore a white blouse with black paints. And from the looks of things he was reading himself to go to work. Though when Issei told them that Lucy will stay here with them and that she was his girlfriend, they were in so much shock that Issei's mom fainted. which made Lucy and Chelsea giggle and Murayama and Caddis to look stunned. As she returned to the land of consciousness, she quickly collected herself before she introduced herself along with her husband. "Nice to meet you all, my name is Suna Hyodo and this is my husband Goru Hyodo. It's a pleasure to meet you girls. Please come in and make yourself at home," Suna told them as she gestured to them to come in and take a seat. As all of them sat down in the living room with Suna going to the kitchen to make some drinks and snacks, Issei's father started to question Issei on how he met the girls. Though Issei waited for his mom to return so he wouldn't need to tell the same thing twice. As Suna returned with drinks and snacks, she sat down next to Goru and listened to what Issei told them. "Well, Murayama, Caddis and Chelsea are in my class. Murayama and Caddis are kendo club captains while Chelsea is in the cooking club, though she doesn't cook that much, she just enjoys eating a hell of a lot of sweets," Issei said with a smirk as he saw Chelsea's face go red with embarrassment. "Well, Lucy just transferred. We met when her school sent a few of their best hours in a student exchange program a few months ago. She liked it here so much that she fully transferred," Issei told them, though to the girls it was clear that he lied about Lucy as they knew that Issei's parents still didn't know about the supernatural. Nodding in understanding, Suna turned toward Lucy. "Tell me, Lucy, from which country you are from exactly." Issei still didn't tell us your surname either. "I'm from Marseille, France, a city on the Mediterranean Sea, mother," and Issei is a little forgetful as he always just tells the first name, but to fully and properly introduce myself. "I'm Lucy Renault and I'm also a second year at Kuo Academy and as of today in Issei's class," Lucy answered as she sent Issei a small glare before she bowed to Suna, earning a small giggle from the woman. "The foreigner, and from your name Chelsea I assume that you are also a foreigner, correct?" Suna asked Chelsea, which was answered with a nod from the auburn-haired girl. "Correct, I'm Chelsea Dalton and I'm from England, Newcastle to be precise, Mrs. Hyodo." Chelsea also introduces herself as she smiles a little. "Well, it's a pleasure to meet not one but two foreigner girls. You can just call me Suna. No need for formalities. That goes to you too also Murayama and Caddis, okay?" Suna told them to get a smile and nod from the girls. After the little chat, Issei excused himself as he took Lucy's hand and took her upstairs to show her where she would sleep. As they were away, someone knocked on the door prompting Guru to open it. In front of the door was none other than Grafia, though instead of her usual maid outfit, she was wearing a black t-shirt with silver jeans and black boots. As she introduced herself as Lucy's sister, she took a seat near Murayama as she made a small conversation with Suna and Guru until Issei and Lucy returned from upstairs. After a minute both Issei and Lucy returned with the former having a dark red face while the latter had a huge smile on her face. Seeing their reaction, Grafia just laughed knowing that Lucy was a mischief when she was in a mood and with Issei with her she was always up for trouble. Hearing her sister's laugh, Lucy turned to her and smiled. "Sister, glad you can come." "Same, though now I have something to discuss with you in private if both Suna and Goru don't mind," Grafia told her as she turned to the Hyodo head, seeing him nod. "Not at all, Issei, why don't you show Grafia and the other girls your room? I have to go to work anyways and your mother is going to the grocery store," Goru instructed as he excused himself before leaving for work. "Be this way," Issei shyly told her as Lucy started laughing at him. "Oh, this is going to be fun," she said to herself while Issei pouted and muttered jerk, which made her laugh harder. As they entered his room, Grafia and Lucy along with Chelsea started laughing while Murayama and Caddis turned red and had steam at all of the posters, magazines and videos he had all around his room. "And you are trying to suppress your perverted side?" Murayama asked as she had steam coming from her ears as her anger rocketed along with Caddis's. "Wait you two before you punch my lights out. In my defense, I didn't enter my room for almost a month and when I was in it I was unconscious and I was too focused on training to beat the chicken to get rid of this stuff," Issei quickly said as he saw that the kendo captains had started to roll up their sleeves, ready to beat the crap out of him. What he says is true of Murayama and Caddis. We trained him so hard that when he finished his training in the real world he would just pass out and we would train him inside of his booster gear. Though I think Drake said something about you still being a hatchling ice deer. Elsha spoke, stopping the girls from going ape on him as they thought about it for the moment. While Issei was furious at what Elsha said. "I'm a hatchling. Oh, when I get there I'm going to kick that old lizard's ass so hard," Issei told with eyes full of anger. "Oh Ice love, don't worry, I will clean the room up later, though I think my sister had something to discuss with us," Lucy reassures him with a sweet smile on her face that turned into a mischievous one as she was sure as hell she would tease him as much as she can. Which made Issei turn pale as he saw that smile, knowing that Lucy will make his life a living hell for all the porn he had. "Now Lucy, before you make his life hell, please listen carefully to what I have to say," Grafia told them as they took their seats everywhere they could. Good, now Lucy, Issei, what I tell you stays hidden, no one knows about this, except the higher-ups in the 3 factions. We were informed about 2 to 3 days ago that some holy swords were stolen, and it is suspected that the culprit was one of the fallen angels cadre class. For those that don't know, the cadre class is like a Mayu and Seraphim among others. Meaning they are a leader class, though the culprit is unknown. We got a message from the leader of the fallen, Azazel, who told us that there were some of his subordinates that were not happy with the peace. And that they were willing to start a new war. What I and Surzik want from the 2 of you is the following: when the culprit is found, we want you to delay him as much as possible if you can't beat him, as someone of the Mayus or maybe Seraphim will come to your aid. As we are sure that whoever it would be is extremely powerful, since they most surely survived the Great War, and don't worry, all party leaders agreed that it's better for the higher up to show up and stop it than to let you guy get killed and makes it a war of vengeance. Grafia spoke in a voice that was dry, making them know that she was very serious about this. Nodding in acceptance, Grafia stood up and left via magic, leaving the group there in silence. As the silence grew, both Lucy and Issei were in their thoughts as they knew that something big was coming, though how big the question was. After a few more moments, Lucy snapped back out of her thoughts as she nudged Issei a little, bringing him back. Looking at her, he saw her big smile. "Yes, Lucy?" he questioned. "Love, why don't you go and buy us something to drink while I and the girls discuss something and clean up your room from this mess?" she said in a sweet tone that made him sweat a little, seeing an undertone to it. Nodding, he left the room, going to do what she asked of him. As he was out of the house, Lucy turned to the other girls and smiled again, making them go white. "Don't worry, I will not harm you. I'm not like that red-haired bitch who is spoiled so much that she thinks that whatever she wants she gets. So calm down, all I want to talk with you about is ice," Lucy calmly told them as they relaxed a little. "Oh okay, what about Lucy?" Murayama asked, still frightened of her as she had seen what the silver-haired girl is capable of doing. "As I said, I will not harm you in any way, shape or form, so stop being so stiff. I can tell the moment I arrived here in the human world that you 3 were glad and happy that he returned, but when you saw us holding hands you were completely jealous," Lucy said, making the girls go wide eyes at how easily she read them. How Cadis said as she was shocked at Lucy's words. "Don't worry, I won't hold it against you if you try to win his heart. He is a dragon, and dragons are known to have harems, so I understand that there would be a lot of girls that would go after him. Though warning, and remember this well. If you hurt him in any shape or form, I will rip you apart and then use evil pieces to revive you, only to do it all over again. Is that understood? I will do whatever is necessary to protect the one that for the first time in my life, outside my family, showed me kindness and love. So if you plan on using him, you better walk away now, and I will make sure to forget it like it never happened. But if you plan to use him and play with his emotions like those 2 bitches, then be prepared to die in a most painfully slow death you can't even imagine." Lucy started in a sweet tone with a smile, before her tone and smile changed to show them that she was dead serious of torturing them until the end of days, in the most gruesome way possible, for hurting the one that managed to conquer and win her heart and love. Nodding furiously, Murayama, Cadis, and Chelsea swore that they will never hurt Issei in any shape or form, making the heiress of the Lucifuge smile in happiness. Lucy quickly hugged all of them, making them surprised at her gesture. "You have my blessing to pursue him, and I will help you in any way I can, but you have to tell me now honestly, do you want to be with him?" Lucy asked them as she wanted to know their feelings towards the one she held up the most in her heart. "Yes," they answered honestly and with passion. Smiling again, Lucy told them to tell her their true feelings for the boy, as they did. Girls started telling Lucy their feelings for the boy that they all loved. Though while they were talking, they started cleaning his room that was filled with porn and making it more like a normal room than a fuck room. Issei was going to buy something to drink, but he was lost in thought about what Grafia told them. It sounded like they would be fighting for their lives, and that didn't sit well with him. He knew that shit is going to go down the drain quickly and furiously, and that there was a chance that those that he held dearly in his heart would get hurt or worse, dead. As he was walking, he bumped into someone, making both fall down on their asses. Hearing a soft "uff" that alerted him that it was a girl that he collided with. Issei quickly looked in the direction that the voice was coming from. Issei saw that the girl he collided was a teen girl his age that had green hair that was tied up into 2 ponytails with brown eyes. She was wearing a white robe that covered her whole body with a hood. Though when they collided, her hood had fallen, letting Issei saw her face, which made him blush a little at her cute face. Though he quickly reminded himself that he now had a girl he loved. So he just stood up and offered the girl on the floor a hand. Sorry about that, I wasn't paying attention where I was going," Issei told her as the girl looked up, seeing his face, and extended arm to her. "Why yeah, sorry about that also, the same can be said for me," she answered him in a shy voice as she took his hand and helped herself up. Though as soon as the contact between them was made, it gave both of them an instant feeling of knowing that they are from different factions that were still hostile to each other. Though the girl quickly started to go for her sword, Issei stopped her before the fight could start with a simple raise of his hand, shaking his head. "You don't have to do that. Honestly, I don't have anything against the angels and church, so you can stop. I don't want to fight you, especially here where there are a lot of people. Though what are you doing here? Kuo is the devil's territory, you know." Issei quietly told her, since he knew that a member of the church here would spell trouble. "Why would I tell you, devil?" the girl asked as she took a fighting stance, still not getting Issei's words. "I thought I told you I don't want to fight. Anyways, I'm off. I need to buy something to drink for my girl and friends. See ya," Issei said as he casually started walking again, only to be stopped with her words. Wait. Can you help me? I know it's bad to ask you for your help, but I need it. I have 2 more comrades." One of them said she was going to visit her childhood friend. "I think his name was Issei, something I can't remember," the green hair said as Issei turned around to face her. "Hey, do you have a picture or anything that will help you find him, or anything of that sort?" Issei said as the girl nodded and gave him a picture with an address written on it. "Yes, my friend has given me this and told me that they would meet me there. I had an hour delayed flight, so they got here before me," the girl told him. Wait a second, this is my home and my address," Issei exclaimed in shock as he saw his house and on the back of the photo his address. "Wow, really? So you are Issei Hyodo?" Greenette said as she looked at him with wide eyes. "Yes, I am, though if your friends are at my house that would be very bad. Let's move quickly. Follow me," Issei told her as both started sprinting in the direction of Issei's house with a girl behind him. "Okay, so you know me, but I never heard your name," Issei said as the girl was easily following his speed. "My name is Cassie Locketheart, but others know me as Godspeed." Cassie introduced herself to him as they closed in on his home, only to feel both holy and devil power rising. Gulping hard, Issei sped up a little more quickly, entering his home with Cassie behind him, only to see that Lucy was glaring at the blue-haired girl as both of them were releasing a ton of power. While the blue hair was wielding a holy sword that Issei could easily tell from the feeling he got from it. Though to his luck, his mother was still away shopping for supplies, so she didn't see anything she shouldn't. What the fuck is going on here? Lucy, and you blue girl, lower your aura and stand down. Don't make me use force," Issei shouted as he quickly stood between them, shocking both girls. You are also a devil. Irina, I told you we shouldn't come here," the blue-haired girl said to the chestnut-haired girl with violet eyes and wearing the same robes with a hood. But with it also being down, showing her face that was in a pout, while still looking at the duo in front of her with her sword at the ready to attack. Though when the chestnut girl saw Issei, she couldn't believe her luck and her happiness skyrocketed through the roof at seeing her old friend. "Issei, is that you?" Irina asked as she ran and hugged Issei hard, making both Lucy and the blue-haired girl blink in confusion. "Love, you know this girl?" Lucy asked, still blinking as she lowered her power. He honestly don't know. "Who are you?" Issei asked the girl that was hugging him. "Issei, it's me," Irina remembered. Irina said, but to her shock, Issei just shook his head. "Doesn't ring a bell," he honestly said. Meaning, do you remember the boy named Rin?" Irina asked again. That made Issei's eyes widen as he remembered his childhood friend. Wait, you are Rin?" Issei just couldn't finish before Lucy along with the kendo duo started laughing hard at him. "Oh, my Issei, there isn't never a dull moment with you." Murayama laughed as she bent a little from it, holding Lucy's arm so as not to fall down. While Caddis was on the ground with Chelsea just shaking her head with a giggle. Cassie was looking at the scene along with the blue-haired girl in shock. She never knew that the boy Irina blabbed about was now a devil, and from the look of him a powerful one at that. "So this is your childhood friend Irina? I never thought that you would be a friend of a devil," the blue-haired girl said, making Irina release her hug as she faced her. "You know Zenobia, I didn't know that he became one," Irina answered as she turned towards Issei. "On that thought, how did you become a devil, Ice? I know that you are not religious," Irina asked, but Issei just sighed, deciding that he would answer her later. "That is a long story that I do not wish to speak about now, at least. Though I have a question, what are you 3 doing here? I know that you are exorcists, but why are you here is the main question," he said as he looked at the 3 girls. "And how do you know that we are exorcists?" Zenobia asked as she narrowed her eyes at him. "I have my ways. Though I think you will find out soon. So back to my question," Issei answered simply while looking at the blue exorcist with a bored look. "You know, love, they are probably what heaven sent to help in the upcoming fight. Though why send you 3 when I know for sure that heaven has some high-level angels ready to fight?" Lucy spoke to them all as she put her head on Issei's shoulder, making Irina a little jealous. "Though you all didn't tell us your name, and what are you doing here in Issei's house?" Irina spoke as she managed to regain control of her emotions. Oh, that's easy. I live here from now on, while the other girls come here on Issei's request. As for names, I will start. My name is Lucy Lucifuge, a high-class devil, and Issei's lover and girlfriend. Lucy said as she bowed a little. Making Irina have wide eyes as she heard that, but before she could say anything Chelsea beat her to it. My name is Chelsea Dalton, a human with sacred gear. Nice meeting you all. Chelsea said as she got closer to Issei and Lucy. Our names are Murayama Yamazaki and Kat Sato. Both said as they also got close to them. I think it's our turn then. My name is Cassie Lockhart Aka Godspeed. Cassie told them as she bowed a little. My name is Zenobia Korda. Zenobia shortly answered, still not pleased. And I'm Irina Shidu. Ice childhood friend. Irina happily told them with a huge smile. Though Lucy could clearly tell that Irina was jealous of Issei being with her. As the greetings were concluded, Issei decided to see why they were here, which unsurprisingly was because of the holy swords that were stolen. In the meantime, Issei's parents returned and were pleasantly surprised to see Irina again. After talking some more, Irina and her group took their leave, telling the others that they would see and talk to them later. Seeing as it was late, Murayama, Caddis and Chelsea also said their goodbyes as they departed to their homes, leaving Issei and Lucy to their devices as they both ate dinner with former parents, where Lucy was telling them a little about herself before going to sleep with Issei. As Issei was getting ready for sleep, he heard his door opening. Not giving it much thought as he knew that it was Lucy, he didn't see her coming behind him and softly putting her hands around his neck with her lips millimeters away from his ear. Honey. Lucy whispered hotly in his ear as her hot breath sent shivers of pleasure down his spine as his horny side was starting to overrun him. Seeing her love shivering just from her voice and her words, Lucy decided to mess with Issei a little bit more. Why yes. Issei said as he gulped down hard. What do you say of us having some bedtime fun? Lucy whispered again as she lightly bit his ear, making him go dark red with a nosebleed. Issei wanted to say it but couldn't as Lucy stopped his brain from working as she was in her mischief mode that Issei was about to learn is deadly to him. Yes love, you want what? She told him as she bit his ear again and gave it a light lick, sending more pleasure down his spine as Issei's twin was rock hard from her work and his nosebleed worsened. He again started to say, but Lucy again beat him to the paunch. You want to ravage me? To make me the slutty girl that is craving for you semen, right? Lucy said as she moved her hand away from his neck and started running it down his torso all the way, softly scratching him, making Issei's condition even worse. Don't you want to use that little dragon of yours to make me finally fully yours? Giving up on his very little self-control that he had. Issei's mind turned to that of the beast, wanting to take her down and fuck her senseless. Why yes. He answered in a groan as Lucy's hand reached his boxers where his twin was covered. Softly running her hand through his boxers, feeling his rock-hard stick, Lucy licked her lips a little loudly, making Issei almost lose total control. You know love, I would like very much for you to fuck me senseless and to make me yours, fully, Lucy told him as she bit his neck, this time smiling at how much she was making Issei fight his control, trying not to violate her. Though what she told him was what she really wanted for him to do. To make her completely his, not that she didn't give herself to him already, but she wanted it to be in all aspects of love. Lucy, you don't know how much I would like to do all of that. Issei said between moans as Lucy was still running her hand through his boxers, massaging his member, giving him pleasure that he didn't know was possible. I know love, I would also love for you to pin me down and do all the stuff you want with me, Lucy answered in a soft slutty voice as she turned Issei to see her, making him almost cum from her slutty voice, her actions, and her looks. Lucy was in her underwear with a bra loosely tied to her body, giving him an almost perfect look at her tits, as her right nipple showing a little where her underpants were at an angle, making her even sexier if possible in Issei's mind. Issei couldn't keep it up, as the amount of blood loss from his nose made him pass out from Lucy's looks and words. Looking at Issei's passed out form, Lucy just giggled as she was secretly glad that he managed to keep himself together for as much as he could. Putting him in bed, Lucy fixed her bra and underpants and laid down next to her passed out boyfriend and cuddled next to him as she fell asleep with a huge smile. After that little teasing show, it was morning as both lovers were still in their sleep, with Lucy holding Issei tightly with no intention of letting him go. As the first sun rays hit them, it was Lucy that was the first one to wake up. Opening her eyes, she saw that the love of her life was still sleeping peacefully as his head was between her breasts, making her giggle a little as she remembered last night and the things she did to him. Though she wasn't as sleepy as him, she untangled herself and started putting her clothes on with her back to him, though she was soon red with steam coming out of her ears as she heard Issei's voice. Now, this is what I call a sight for sore eyes. He said with a yawn as he saw Lucy bending down to put on her school uniform, giving him a perfect view. I'm more than happy to show you this every morning, love. Lucy said, her voice slutty, and her movements become a little bit erotic, giving Issei a show with her face still red from his words. Grinning a little, Issei moved a little closer to her before grabbing her waist and pulling her back to bed, which turned him ache from the silver hair girl. Pinning her down, Issei looked at her dark red face and dark blue eyes that held only love for him. Leaning down, Issei captured her lips with his softness before Lucy, who was melting in his kiss, started to be more aggressive as she brought her hand around his neck with her legs encircling his hips, locking him in place as she hungrily started kissing him. After another session of passionate kissing, both put on their clothes and went to breakfast and headed to school. Along the way they were joined by 3 other girls. With their little group joined together, they made their way towards the gates of the school, not knowing what clusterfuck was about to happen. As soon as they went through the gates, all the eyes of the students present there went to them. Though when they saw Issei holding hands with a beautiful silver-haired girl, their eyes widened as some girls were whispering furiously about the girl that was holding hands with one of the most perverted boys in the school, while guys sent death glares at him. Lucy, seeing this, gained a mischievous grin as she stopped, suddenly making Issei almost fall to his butt at the end of the moment, though when he turned his head to see why she stopped, his eyes widened as she kissed him on the lips, making other students have an unbelievable face at seeing this. But before anything could happen, Murayama took both of them and started pulling them to class before the chaos could begin. When Issei entered his class, he was bombarded with question after question about the girl that kissed him, but before he could answer, the teacher entered the room and made an announcement. "Settle down everyone, now before we begin, we have a new student joining us. Please come in and introduce yourself to your new class." As soon as the teacher said those words, the door opened to reveal a girl that had long silver hair with purple tone to it and dark blue eyes that as soon as they saw Issei shined in excitement and mischief. The simple look made Issei gulp a little, hoping she didn't do anything too bad. Writing her name on the chalkboard, she turned to class and introduced herself. "Hello, I'm Lucy Renault and I'm from France," she told the class in an elegant voice with a perfect bow that made boys and girls blush at her regal behavior and beauty. "Wow, she is perfect, 8357-85. Mitsuda shouted to the class, earning himself a chop on the head from Issei and a giggle from Lucy. "If I were you, I would shut up," Issei said in a cold voice that made the class stunned. But before the teacher could react, Lucy dropped the bomb that made whole class shock. "Now love, I thought I told you not to blow up that easily," Lucy spoke to Issei, earning a blush from him as the whole class looked at him in shock. "Love," they all shouted as they saw Issei duck down to evade 2 punches to the face from the perverts who were furious at him, while Lucy just giggled again. "Yes, we are together. You all see me kiss him before school, and before you ask or say something, no, he didn't blackmail me or anything like that. If anything, he helped me return to my senses, and I'm eternally grateful to him," Lucy told the class as their eyes widened. Before the fight could happen between Issei and the boys, the teacher stopped it with a cough and told Lucy to take a seat near Issei, much to her joy. As the teacher went on with his lesson, Issei started to doze off, earning him a light shake from Lucy which woke him up. The teacher, seeing Issei shaking his head, decided to call on him. Issei, since you love this topic so much, during what invasion were the German forces pushed back into Poland?" The teacher asked for a silent groan from Issei. Looking down for a second, he saw the information and answered respectfully. "Operation Bagration, which was launched from Belarus by Soviet armed forces, also known as the Red Army. Operation Bagration ended when the Red Army was near the outskirts of Warsaw," Issei replied to the teacher. The teacher smiled brightly, nodding his head. "Correct, Issei." Now he was interrupted by the speaker for the announcement system coming alive. A moment later, a female voice came over the speaker system. "Umo Mono, Issei Hyodo, Lucy Renault, Chelsea Dalton, Murayama Yamazaki, and Kat Sato. Please report to the Occult Research Club meeting room immediately. Thank you," the announcer said as the teacher sighed. "Go on, kids. The rest is homework for you all, which is reading pages 115 to 125 and complete the worksheet I gave you at the beginning of class," the teacher said as the 6 students left the room towards the orc. "Anyone have any idea about why all of us were called?" "I get Issei, Lucy, and Raynare, but us 3? Cadis asked as they were making their way towards the clubroom. "Probably the princess wanted to have all of us there, since Ona Citri, the student council president, told her about 3 exorcists wanting to talk to her, and before Issei said anything, we met her this morning during our morning meeting that he doesn't attend," Raynare answered, getting all of their eyes wide with shock. "Sona is a devil." All of them thought as they saw the girl plenty of times, but never bothered to check. As they entered the orc, they saw Rias and her group along with none other than Sona, with a student council on one side and the 3 girls on the other. Issei sighed heavily as he and his group entered. "So this is the Red Dragon Emperor and the Lucifugere. The girl with short black hair emotionlessly said as she pushed her glasses up her nose a little. Yes, we are what you say heir to the Citri house. Lucy said in equal tone as both she and Issei bowed a little. I'm sure that by now you have heard of me, though we could discuss that later. Now back to the topic, now that Rias group is here along with the people you wanted, what is that you wanted to say? Sona told the three exorcists as Zenobia took the lead in their conversation. What we want, not what we demand, is for you to not get in our way of hunting down thieves who stole our artifacts. She demanded as she took a hold of what they could tell was a holy sword. Now Zenobia, we told you to be civil, how can you demand from them something like that when you are hostile? Cassie spoke softly as she stood up and bowed. What my friend tried to say is that we would be grateful if we don't have to worry about you devils joining the ones that stole our weapons. In exchange we will tell you who stole it. Is it agreeable? That is reasonable, you have my guarantee that the devils will not intervene in the church's business. Issei spoke before anyone of the heirs could tell anything shocking to both Rias and Sona. Ice, what are you doing? Who gave you the permission to agree to something? You are my pawn. Rias yelled as she was furious at what OP said. Though before Sona could also say something, Lucy decided to remind them why she was feared. Now little whiny bitch, what did I tell you about raising your voice at my love? Lucy sternly spoke, flexing her power to tell her to know that she continued what she started and wouldn't stop this time. That made everyone stiffen as they felt her washing over them as they wanted to be everywhere else except here. Thought while Rias and her peerage were shaking in fear. Sona and her peerage along with the church members drew their weapons and magic at the ready. Though they were shocked when Issei just kissed her cheek, softly gripping her ass, making her power dissipate and making her stiffen a moan that was threatening to escape as Issei, from the looks of things, found one of her sensitive spots. Behave. Issei sternly scolded her as she just nodded her head with a pout but soon was relaxed with a dark red face and steam coming from her ears as Issei patted her head softly. Excellent, I was waiting for something to spark tension. Kiba suddenly told them as he drew his sword and pointed it at Zenobia, having an emotionless face with eyes that showed pure fury. Shit, what's wrong with him? Issei thought as he saw Kiba attacking Zenobia, who was saved by Cassie blocking his sword with her hand-striped swords. Crap. Thanks for watching this video. Movie 4 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.